Okay, today is day 4, and we'll be talking about how to fix an irregular heartbeat naturally, as well as a revealing look at how emotions affect the heart and the best ways to use essential oils for heart health. First up, Dr. Edward Group will talk to you about cardiac vibrations, because in reality, all healing inside the body comes down to the quality of your vibrational energy. I know you'll really enjoy his life-saving heart-brain message. In addition, Dr. Group will reveal how emotions have a direct impact on heart health. We'll talk about the most helpful and destructive emotions, but be prepared for a surprising discovery. And finally, there's a hidden power inside all of us at no cost to you. You're about to find out how to tap into it. Enjoy this presentation with Dr. Edward Group. Okay, so now the fun begins, because I know, Dr. Group, we talked about best foods, best detox practices. We've done this in other conversations we've had with each other, and I hope people watch that, especially the new people, to how to get out of a cardiovascular mess. But just as important, maybe in a certain sense even more important, is this whole cardiac vibration thing, right? It's important for people to understand this concept.
Sometimes it's what you can't see or what you can't measure that are the most powerful forces in the world. And when you study the healing process, whether it's the heart or whether it's anything else in the body, healing really comes down to vibration, right? Because if you think about it, what's going to raise your vibration to activate your self-healing mechanism, or what's going to lower your vibration? Because all we are is electromagnetic beings in the simplicity of things. We vibrate at certain frequencies. When we are in tune in our relationships, we vibrate at positive vibrations or negative vibrations. It's the yin and the yang, basically. It's the positive and the negative. Are you doing more things every single day to raise your vibrations or create positive vibrations, or are you doing more things to lower your vibrations?
I think a lot of people may not notice how important and how much this is happening to all of us. But an easy story that I often like to tell is quite simply when you walk into a room and you feel like, ooh, I don't want to be next to that person, or the other way around. You know, you talk for a couple minutes and you feel like, wow, you're instantly connected, feel like you're best friends with somebody. That's way beyond the physical. You spent a lot of time with them, you talked about a lot of things, you've gone through a lot of things. It's a vibe that you feel. That's an invisible energy.
More and more now, people are starting to realize that we do have a gut feeling, a heart feeling, and a mind feeling. And that's why it's so important from a vibrational or energetic standpoint to understand that we do have this aura of energy around us. And it changes throughout the day. It can change from positive to negative depending on what you see, what you hear, what you feel, what you think. And it's very important to know that how is this vibration happening? For example, even with the heart, they've been able to measure a vibration coming from your heart up to 6 feet away. But then I think that it even goes further than that, because it's only what can be measured. It's the new quantum energetic vibrational healing modalities that I feel are going to be energy healing and vibrational healing are going to be the future of medicine. And we know now, for example, with the heart, that the HeartMath Institute has identified a tiny brain inside the heart. And it's made of neurites. And we know that the heart brain actually has memory because of the heart transplant patients that have received hearts from other individuals and have actually become those individuals or had dreams or had memories of those individuals. There was a heart transplant patient that tracked down the donor. All of a sudden, after the transplant, they had never eaten fast food and they had a desire for Kentucky Fried Chicken. and they couldn't figure out why they had that desire. And they tracked down the donor, and sure enough, after they talked to the parents of the donor, they found that that was their favorite food. That's all they ate was KFC. It's very powerful and very interesting, and that now you're seeing these stories from all of these heart transplant patients that when they transplant the heart, the mind and the memories of the person that died transfer over to the new person that has the heart transplant. So I believe actually, now scientists know that there is a connection between the heart brain and the real brain and the gut as well. But I think that just because it's been able to measure it in the heart, I believe that all of our cells have the same memories and the DNA have the same memories. It just hasn't gotten to the point where we're able to measure that yet. So it's very important to keep your heart or your cardio vibrations as high and as normal and as balanced as possible.
My spiritual teachers in the past taught me a very valuable lesson, and I think it's all part of this conversation about how people can feel a bit better in their life, is that emotions obviously are very powerful. And feelings of anger, guilt, resentment, I think most people watching us clearly understand that that's very physically, emotionally, spiritually destructive. But as strong as emotions are, it's really important, kind of what you're saying about how there's memory everywhere and how all of these physical areas of our body, our brain, our cells, everywhere, our different organs, how they all communicate with each other. It's so important that our thoughts, that we're very mindful about what we're going through, even emotionally, and that our mind, our brain, should really lead our emotions, so that even if we are very emotional about something, it just would be really healthy to give it much more thought so we could perhaps steer things in a healthier, better direction. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
It totally makes sense. David Hawkins had a book called Power versus Force, and he measured the vibrational frequencies of emotions. And what he found was the highest vibrational frequency in the body was enlightenment. And that is, really spending time finding out who your true self is, going within, through meditation and becoming enlightened. And he would attribute that to somebody like Jesus or Buddha or somebody on a very high spiritual level. Now you would think that love would be the next highest vibrational frequency, but actually peace is the second highest vibrational frequency within your body. And if you think about that, being in a state of peace within all your cells and your mind and your body and your soul, in order to achieve consciousness, you need to be in a state of peace, which is why meditation is so powerful and meditation is so healing. And after peace came joy, the state of joy, which is a very high vibrational frequency that affects the heart, the mind, and the soul. It all works in unison with each other. And love was actually after joy. Now, that's the positive vibrations. Now, how many people do you know in society today that are resonating at very high vibrations? Because on the lower end of the scale, when we talk about the balance of high vibrations versus low vibrations, you have ego, you have guilt, and you have jealousy, and you have fear, and you have anger. And the lowest vibration out of all of them, the one that lowers your body down, and it's the hardest to bring back up, is shame. How many people do you know that are looking in the mirror every day and saying, I love you, that pay attention to themselves, that actually love themselves? With society the way it is, with social media the way it is, the design of keeping everybody down as much as possible, keeping everybody controlled, keeping everybody non-aggressive, making sure that they focus on everything outside instead of going inside and focusing on their true self or who they really are, or trying to raise their consciousness, or trying to become a better person or raise their vibrations through thoughts. we have a society that actually rewards and tries to produce shame, through all of these different methods. So we're keeping the vibrational frequencies down. And that's not even including all of the fear that's out there and all of the anger that's out there. So you have people that are living in a state of low vibrations because of their external environment. And then on top of that, the exposure to the electromagnetic frequencies that people are exposed to, that is also altering the communication between the cells and the electromagnetic system in the body. And the fact that people are not grounding themselves, they're not walking barefoot, they're not connected to the Earth's resonant frequency, they're not swimming in ponds or in rivers or just walking through nature. That's lowering the vibrational frequencies. So we have a situation that, frequency is everything. You can have people eat high vibrational foods. You can have people drink clean water. Oxygen, by the way, is something that raises your vibrational frequencies. The highest vibrational frequency in the body is actually in the pineal gland. And that's connected to the heart, because when you meditate, the pineal gland is your third eye. It's your consciousness. It's how you communicate with the totality of consciousness. And everybody has a small crystal in their pineal gland. And it's the highest vibrational organ in the body. As a matter of fact, talking about the cardiovascular system, there's no other organ in the body that has as much blood flow through it than the pineal gland. And yet, what has society done? They've calcified our pineal glands to lower our vibrational energy, to calcify it, to take away the ability to raise our vibrational frequency through meditation and through mindfulness.
It's interesting, everything you're talking about is a poor lifestyle, right, that we hear about all the time. Everybody knows what that is. Really does truly separate us from who we really are. And at the same time, it builds in all of that conditioning, all of that fear, all of that destructive stuff is easy to accumulate in someone like that because they're getting so much further and further away from what they know is really something that they need to do. And I often used to work with kids in their athletic endeavors, how to be better, cooler, calmer, more collected, really stay focused so that they could perform at their highest level. And I used to always tell the kids every day, constantly reminded them, you don't need to have a master's, a PhD, be a doctor, be Albert Einstein. You don't have to be this exceptional thing that you think you aren't. Every one of you really knows what you got to do. And I'd make it really simple with them. If they lost a tennis match and their serve wasn't good, duh, you know you have to work on your serve. But if you know that when you're crying your eyes out and you admit it that day, but then the next day and the day after and the day after that, you're not working on it, why aren't you? Low self-esteem, getting distracted, getting busy with other things that are wasting your time, and you're not working on your serve. You're not working on making yourself better. You admitted you knew what you had to do, so why aren't you doing it? It's a huge problem for a lot of people. Fair to say?
Fair to say. Fair to say, because people try to please other people and it just creates internal emotions. They are a lot of times ridiculed by their friends on social media. They try to be somebody that they're not. They try to satisfy other people instead of satisfying themselves.
Actually, to interrupt you for just a second, excuse me. In the desire for what you said before, for greater peace, for more love, they do all these things, but it's misguided, and a lot of times it's very unhealthy because, as I was listening to you speak before, just for another moment, the greatest problem for people when they're older, just before they die, is what? The regrets. They know at the end of their life, I should have done this. I could have done this, but they didn't. Big problem.
when you talk about having everything there in simplicity as far as healing modalities like the sun and clean water and clean food, I would say one of the most powerful things that everybody has, but they're not educated on, is the ability to go in and use their mind through meditative practices or through powerful thought patterns to be able to heal the body, heal the mind. And that's why I'm really big into meditation, because meditation is disassociating yourself from reality. And when you look at reality as being the root cause of everything, right? Whether you're eating toxic food, drinking toxic beverages, in a toxic relationship, exposed to EMFs, I mean, basically everything in this world that's causing the disruption in frequencies is on the outside. And everything that heals the disruption of the frequencies is on the inside.
So actually what you were saying just now, correct me if I'm wrong, when you said reality before, outer realities, maybe I'm too concerned about your reality, Dr. Group, about me, rather than my own inner reality about who I feel and who I know I am in talking to you. So it's like you're describing two realities. Outer, other stuff, and your inner reality, and how we then interact with the rest of the world.
People haven't tapped into the power that we actually all have. I mean, we talk about toxicity and everything like that, but I mean, there's been many cases in the last, since the beginning of time of miracles or instantaneous healings, or somebody gets caught under a pipe and they, a 1,000-pound pipe, and somebody goes over there and just lifts the pipe up and saves their life. What I'm talking about is the vibrational energy, the power that we all have within us, but we are not tapping into because we're not educated on it and we're not taught how to tap into that power. And that power is free and that power is available to all of us. You can instantaneously cure cancer if you know how to do it and you go inside and you know how to do it with your mind and you tap into that consciousness. You tap into that healing vibration. Bernie Siegel was using some of that with thought patterns years ago with cancer patients. There's so much potential, and that's all free, right? Like again, the simplicity in healing is nothing more than your vibrational input and what your body resonates at on a daily basis. Like if you have any disease or condition, your body is resonating at a frequency below what your body needs to maintain health and vitality. So how do you address that is, yes, of course, you try to eliminate as much as you can. You try to buffer out the EMFs. You try to stay in a positive emotional state. You try not to judge people. You try to send love and affection and gratitude to the world and to everybody else, because all those things raise your vibrational frequencies. The simplicity of it is you just try to avoid the things that are going to lower your vibrational emotional frequencies. And you, looking at it from a karmic standpoint, if let's say somebody yells at you or gets angry at you, you can say, okay, well, thank you. I just eliminated my karma for that. And you can just, give gratitude to them for yelling at you, and then you're not taking that on or you're not lowering your vibrational frequencies. No, it's not easy, though. It's not easy.
I was just going to say, that is a difficult thing to do. And again, going back to my spiritual teachers from way back when I needed it the most, I had huge anger issues. Clearly, a very bad vibrational place to be. If I lived with that for the last 30 years, I'm sure I'd be in a really bad place today, without a doubt. But one of the biggest things that spiritual teacher taught me was this idea of everything we're talking about here is understanding that anger I had, even though back then I was convinced it was your fault, right? Or her fault, or somebody else's fault, or some outside thing. It was really just a very self-centered, low vibrational place to be. Wanting to control everything and thinking about things more in a very self-centered way. And here it is, we're talking about just doing all the things that you just listed about, having more gratitude, doing all these things. It just gets us closer and closer to who we really ought to be, so that we can have a lot more enlightenment in our life, a lot more peace, a lot more joy, less fighting, less aggravation, by just simply getting away from taking things so personally, right? Don't take things like that and just think of someone else, other-centered. That was a big help for me.
Sometimes you just have to, again, like disassociate yourself from what's currently going on. I had somebody not too long ago that because of the situation that they were going through in life, they couldn't sleep. They were stressed out all the time. They were in a state of fear. They were in a state of anger. They let all of the things that were going on in this reality on earth affect them to the point where their body was breaking down completely. What I asked them to do, I said, I want you to disassociate yourself with reality. That means, live in your own world, get to know who you are as a person, spend time in meditation, focus on nothing that's going to be negative. Remove yourself, eat clean food, and just go into a state of meditation and just no TV, no nothing. Within 1 week, that person completely transformed their life. Getting that calmness, that mindfulness. For example, if you're going to eat an apple, let's say, most people just grab an apple and they start eating it. This is the difference of being present in the moment, and that's what mindfulness is all about. Being in the present moment. Have you ever had a conversation with somebody and then, 10 minutes later you forgot everything they said? That's happened to me with my kids. I've taken them home from school or something, or we're, going, picking them up from band or something like that. And then, they're talking to me, and I get home and they're like, so Dad, what'd you think about that? And I was like, oh my gosh, I did not hear a word that they just said. And that's being scattered. That's not being in a state of peace and in a state of high vibrational, status within your body. And it all comes down to being in the present moment and being mindful. And so let's say that I give the example of eating because we are talking about cardiovascular and the vagus stimulation. The vagus nerve that supplies the heart and the gut is a parasympathetic nerve. That is your parasympathetic nerve in the body. As a matter of fact, only mammals have that nerve. It's like a consciousness nerve, and it's the emotional nerve that controls your fight or flight reaction. And so, if you were to get that apple and you were to just hold it for a second and be present and be grateful of that apple and just say, close your eyes and picture the tree when it was a flower, and picture the bee landing on it and then pollinating it, and then the tiny little apple growing, and then the sunshine. You can feel the warmth of the sun on that apple, and the water and the rain hitting the apple, and the vibrations of the apple as it grows, and then picture the apple being picked, and then traveling all the way to the grocery store, and then you pick the apple, and then now you're holding the apple in your hand and you're looking at it, and you're seeing the different shades of red and the golden streaks in it, and you're appreciating it. And then you're in the moment, you're being mindful of that apple, and then you take a bite of the apple and you're slowly chewing the apple, and you feel the water, and you can feel the vibrations, and you can feel the taste, the different tastes, and then chewing it until it's a liquid before you swallow it. And then swallowing it down. That is eating in a parasympathetic state. That's being mindful of your food. And I talk about eating because eating is what's causing the majority of the diseases and the situations that we're addressing all the time, with eating low vibrational foods or just eating in a sympathetic state all the time. And that's what's missing from society. And even going one step further and preparing your food and cooking your food and then eating your food. And that's how you become mindful and grateful with your food, and that's how you raise your vibrational frequency.
I'm going to push back a little bit to you about one word that you used, which I don't want people to get confused about, because I think you and I are actually both talking about the same thing. I just kind of worded it a little differently. What I hear from you more is the way that we interact with things needs to change. And I think that for a lot of people, they easily understand. Change your perspective. And I'll give you an example. There was somebody I worked with for many years at the beginning, and it was very important back then. I needed the money, right? And it was a relationship that at the beginning was very combative. And he'd push and I'd push. And it was just constantly war. Every time we saw each other, it was tension, and we're just sort of waiting for that verbal fight or that, tug of war was going to happen. But then it dawned on me when I was thinking again of my spiritual teacher saying, just stop thinking about yourself and what he's doing to you. Maybe he's going through something, and basically changed my perspective, which was huge, where I thought more about him, what he was going through. He felt threatened that I was going to leave his business, not be able to back him up and help him with all the kids that were part of his program. He needed me. I thought very differently about him, and then started interacting with him differently. So talk about heart issues. People have relationship problems. They're fighting. They're screaming. You're not doing what I wanted, and you say I'm not doing what you want, and everybody's back and forth. When all I simply did was start thinking more about him and what he was going through that had nothing to do with me at all. And I started reassuring him more that I'm here for him, and that I'll see him tomorrow and the next day, and I'm not going anywhere. And it was simple stuff like that I would actually say. You talk about vibrations, about the words that we use. Express your anger, it's good for you. I don't think so at all. I'll be right out there transparent with everybody. Expressing that kind of stuff is only going to bring more hate, more anger, more problems. He was screaming and yelling. I reassured him. Long story short, we had the best 9-10-year relationship, became the best of friends. There was no combating at all, no fighting, because I just thought of him more than myself and made the whole thing so much better. You know what I mean?
Well, it all comes down to words and then thoughts as well. I mean, your heart can pick up on thoughts as well of people. And words with the perception can be extremely damaging. And what we're missing a lot is learning and teaching people how to communicate and how to read people the right way, and really how to become good listeners. And if you become good listeners, that helps, your communication skills, which helps everything else, including.
Can I share something with you real quick? Yeah. You said something very strange, I'm sure, for a lot of people listening, that you can actually think about somebody's heart. Like, what? You said something like that, right? My wife has a great gift with that. When my daughter played tennis, she would be thousands of miles away from where she played. But there's one story in particular that I'll never forget, where she actually told me that, and I was with her, of course, at the time, and she was off on her own playing. We don't know how she's doing. Is she winning or losing? My wife was able to pick up the upset, the emotional upset of my daughter was playing another girl, the girl's father watching the match, and she could actually feel he was shaking his head like, this is not good. My daughter is going down. So my wife picked up on that upset 3,000 miles away to know, you know what, I think our daughter is winning the tennis match. But it's very real what you're saying. That's the only reason why I'm sharing the story. That we should know that our thoughts and our feelings, they travel.
They travel, yeah, and intuition and being able to pick up on things. I mean, sometimes you go to call somebody, or you think about calling somebody, and the next thing you know, they're calling you. So it is. We're all connected. I mean, we're all connected. We're all part of this energetic matrix, and hopefully we'll be able to tap into that and control that a little bit better. One of the best ways I've found to help people kind of get out of that fight or flight response is just breathing techniques. I mean, talking about vibrations and raising your vibrations, what we have taught for years is one of the fastest ways scientifically proven is 9 deep breaths. All the way starting from your stomach and going up and then out. And if you close your eyes and you focus inside your head, just focus you're sitting on a chair. If you draw a line from here to the middle and then straight back, if you just picture yourself sitting on a chair, and you can create whatever you want. You can be in the middle of a forest, you can be in a house, you can be in a field, you can be wherever you want to be. But you're taking your focus from the outside right into the middle of your head, but at the same time you're doing deep breathing exercises, just 9 deep breaths, and that will take you out of a sympathetic state and into a parasympathetic state extremely fast. And if you just practice that, not only that, talking about from the cardiovascular system, I'm a big fan of the Wim Hof breathing method, and because people are not breathing properly. They're taking shallow breaths. And breathing is extremely important. Number one, to breathe nice, pure, clean air, which is why I recommend everybody get a good air purification system for their home and their office, especially the bedroom. If you're going to be sleeping in there, put some live plants in there. Because you take 30,000 breaths every single day. And most people's homes, especially if they have pets, are full of pet dander, mold, mildew, VOCs. They're using toxic air fresheners, all that stuff. And all that is actually contributing to a lower vibration through the air that you're breathing. So one of the best ways to increase your vibrations, your cardiac vibrations, is through breathing, and that's because it resets the vagus nerve. So does cold showers do the same thing. And it calms the body down. And when your body is calm, then your heart can actually beat in a calm, high vibrational rhythm. So what happens is whenever you go through these phases of fight or flight, your body and your heart, if you measure the rhythms, they're all going to be either you're going to have coherent rhythms with parasympathetic, or you're going to have incoherent with sympathetic. And in that state, your body's going to shift to producing more cortisol instead of DHEA, and so you're going to be actually producing your own toxins within your own body, and your digestive system's going to come to a halt. So I think that we have a lot of education to do, because science is not measurable really so much as far as how you can. Now they're starting to measure the effects of meditation more, but they're not teaching people how to be mindful and how to meditate and how to recognize situations that might increase their heart rate. Because think about it. I mean, you have people, your heart, I mean, that's the emotional, it's like the key. And it's an electromagnetic system inside your system. It's like your motor that's pumping the oil to everywhere, which is the blood, which is your life force everywhere in your system. And to have that be irregular all the time, and to have blood that is full of toxins that are lowering your frequency all the time, that's something that everybody should look at and just say, wow, I want to feel the emotions. I want to have that heart feeling. I want to feel those emotions. I want to feel the love. I want to feel those positive vibrations. But it's not easy to do, especially living in a world that we're living in today. So what I'm hoping, and that a lot of other people are hoping, is that you will be in tune with your heart. You will understand that you can raise your vibrational frequencies. You will understand the power of breath, the power of meditation, because ultimately those are the simple things that we have that are the most powerful things. That's why years ago in every biblical text, if you look at the Vedic writings, if you look at the Christian writings, if you look at the Muslim writings, if you look at it, doesn't matter, dating back, they would all go through a water fasting period every single year or multiple times a year of detoxification, cleansing, meditation, and self-healing. It's really more or less understanding how to become your own doctor. We all have the power, we all have the self-healing mechanism, but when your self-healing mechanism and your vibration is low, you're going to have a hard time healing.
Just to be a physiologist again, for those who are having a hard time meditating though, connecting still to your point about breathing, if people were to just walk, and again, it's not a sexy thing, it's not high intensity interval training and all this anaerobic stuff and burning calories and upping your metabolism, just go for that walk, which a lot of people hear is good for you, but do a little breathe play Watch what happens in 10, 15, or 20 minutes. Breathe Play is a play on a book title that I learned years ago from a triathlete who taught me amazing things about how to use your breath to perform at a higher physical level in athletics. But I've used it to this day, and it feels great, to just walk, and literally every step you take, how many steps do you take to breathe in? How many steps do you take to breathe out? Breathe in with 2 steps. Breathe out in 3 steps. 2 steps breathe in, 3 steps out. Maybe it's 3 steps to breathe in and 4 steps to breathe out. That would be a little bit more relaxed. But just connecting yourself, like you say, to your breath and physical movement would automatically unplug people from their sympathetic state. Guaranteed. 10, 15, 20 minutes of that, when you're back, your whole nervous system, your whole physical body is in a whole better, healthier place. If you chew your food really well, I mean 50 to 100 times a mouthful, and again, it's a big range. But the idea is when most people are chewing 2 or 3 or 4 times and then boom, down the hatch it goes, chewing your food 30, 40, 50 plus times, every mouthful, taking longer for a small meal, your whole nervous system, your whole physical being is going to feel so good. People can notice that trying it in one day.
It's just a little bit of time management as well. I mean, how much time are you spending on you every single day? You know, that's part of the life is and energy is about balance. And when you have people that you have your work life, you have your personal life, you have your relationship life. So what is the balance between those? Because if you're not balanced, then you might be taking on lower vibrations because you have a bad boss or you don't get along with your teammates, or you might be, most people hate going to work. They hate their job. And it's also about, really spending time. You spend 8, 10, 20 hours a day at work, let's say, but how much time are you spending on yourself? That's work too. Actually, how much time are you spending on your relationships with your loved ones, your kids, your wife, your friends? That is a good positive vibration, hopefully, that you need to spend time with. So I think we've lost sight on what, the true human potential is, and then like the true spirituality of who we really are and what we need to do. That's why I think it's really important when I say spiritual development that people take time, and the best time in my opinion is in the morning, to just get up early, don't touch your phone, don't turn the TV on, go to a dark place from 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, but win the mornings and spend time with yourself and meditate and think positive thoughts and say your prayers and give gratitude to the world and send love to the world, but then also receive it. And it's so powerful. People, you can even hold your heart, you can put your hands over your heart and you can talk to yourself and you can tell yourself that you love yourself and you can praise yourself. Instead of always cutting down yourself all the time, most people are just, I'm not good enough, I'm not a good employee, I'm fat, I'm this, I'm that. It's just negative, negative, negative. And they even speak that all the time too. Oh, my heart's broken. Oh, that just breaks my heart. That just breaks my heart. Or, your body picks up on those vibrations that are coming out of your mouth. So you're either going to have good vibrations coming out of your mouth or negative vibrations coming out of your mouth. And really, since we're talking about heart, your heart is the main organ that picks up all that. And your heart doesn't want to feel that way. Your heart wants to feel positive. It wants to feel love. It wants to feel appreciated. It wants to feel grateful because your heart is what's pumping your blood. It's keeping you alive. So how many times have you told your heart, I love you, heart? How many times have you thanked your heart? How many times have you given your heart what it needs to sustain your life in the proper way? How many times have you given your heart that calmness and that peace and that love and that joy?
Great information. Thanks, Dr. Grip. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Our next guest, Dr. Cynthia Foster, will talk about how to naturally fix irregular heartbeats. That's right, you can fix it without drugs or risky medical procedures. I should know because that's exactly what I did. Dr. Foster will reveal the 2 best classic herbs to calm down and regulate irregular or skipped heartbeats while strengthening the heart muscle at the same time. In addition, Dr. Foster will share an incredible story about her own father's experience with the worst irregular heartbeat she has ever witnessed, plus some life-saving techniques to eliminate the problem. And finally, if you or someone you love is suffering with AFib, you won't want to miss this amazingly simple way to get rid of poor heart function, and you'll soon see why it's completely different than the Western medicine approach. So first of all, Dr. Foster, let me just say thank you very much for being here. I really do appreciate you traveling all the way from California, especially these days with traveling being such a challenge. I really do appreciate you coming out. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here.
So we have a lot to talk about a, I think, often sort of brushed aside topic, but it's extremely important. And so that's why I'm really happy we're going to talk about heartbeats in general, how they should just be something that you basically don't notice most of your life, that it just goes smoothly and regular and does what we want it to do. But millions of people, including myself, have gone through this, where you experience this irregular heartbeat. There's all these issues, irregular, fast, AFib. We're going to cover all of it, right? But the first one, let's talk about irregular or those skipped heartbeats, which for a lot of people can also be disturbing, but conventional cardiology is like, what else do they do? So walk us through it. What do we do?
Okay, so a lot of people come to me with palpitations. This is a very common complaint that I get a lot. So palpitations is like you're sensing or you're feeling that your heart is pounding too fast, and it also may be too rapid. Now, rapid heartbeat, there's a medical term for that called tachycardia. Now, as you get older, especially for women, once they hit menopause, they can have a tendency to get like a skipped heartbeat every once in a while. And this is really disturbing when it happens because it's like, oh, you think of your heart as being so vital for your survival. So when it happens, it's like, oh, am I having a heart attack, right? Am I going to be okay? So it's very disheartening, but there's a lot that you can do for this. So for irregular heartbeat, I have certain herbs that I use for this. So a classic herb that helps normalize the heartbeat is hawthorn. So there's hawthorn berry, there's leaf, and there's flower, and they all have activity for the heart. And another one that I use is called motherwort, and motherwort is an amazing herb. Both of those herbs have what we call a positive inotropic effect. And so basically what that means is that it helps strengthen your heartbeat so that when your heart does beat, it's getting the blood where it needs to go. And then they also have a negative chronotropic effect. So these are medical terms, right? And chronotropic has to do with the speed of your heartbeat. So what you want to do when you have skipped and missing heartbeats like this is first you want to get everything calmed down. So the motherwort and the hawthorn are herbs that help slow down. And there's also been research on those herbs that show that they actually help to regulate irregular heartbeats. So a lot of people think, oh, it has to be something I go to a doctor for. It has to be that I have to go on to an anti-arrhythmic drug. And there are lots of side effects to those drugs. So you don't necessarily want to be on those. And so if you have this sort of problem, let me tell a story about it. How effective can these herbs be? So those are the herbs, hawthorn, motherwort, and there are some other ones that can really help with this as well. There's Cactus grandiflorus, there's passion flower, there's black cohosh, there's some of these other ones that sedate, but those are the two main ones. My father had an episode of AFib while he was undergoing chemo. And before anybody asks, I'm of course have the MD, but I've been natural for the past 20 years. So I told him not to do it. And a lot of people believe when they get cancer that they have to do this. So he chose to do this, and they put the port in. And when they put these ports in, it goes directly into your heart. And what a lot of people don't know is that when people get this type of chemo, they can get heart attacks. All right. Now, a lot of people don't know when they've gotten a heart attack, but the unfortunate consequence of a heart attack is that you will have an irregular heartbeat, right? So a part of the heart muscle is damaged, and the electrical signals cannot go through the way that they are supposed to, designed to go through the heart. And so you will see like AFib is a pretty common consequence of having a heart attack. So my father had the heart attack. We didn't realize it at the moment. We knew something was wrong. I came to pick him up for his appointment. We were taking him to the hospital for the radiation, and I walked in the door and he said, something's not right with my heart. And my first instinct, and every doctor, what they do is start to feel your pulse first, right? So I feel his pulse. And I felt the worst pulse I have ever felt. In 20 years of feeling pulses, I felt just jumping everywhere. It was skipping all over the place. It was irregularly irregular. It was, and I went, oh, that's bad. I don't know what this is. Maybe he's nervous. I remember at the time we had peaceful nerves. We had herbal sedatives. I gave him herbal sedatives. I'm like, okay, we're taking you to the hospital anyway, so let's just get you going so we're not late. In the meantime, though, and what I do a lot for people with these heart problems is we do a lot of emotional work. And so I was coaching him through a technique. So I was teaching him how to release tension from his heart area. And we were using his breath. We were using the exhale, and we were saying affirmations. And I was asking him questions. Could you let it go? Would you let it go? When? And then we were repeating over and over and over. And he was calming down, right? So nobody thinks to do this, right? Your heart's doing this fluttering or skipping or whatever. Nobody thinks, do the obvious, right? Let's take some deep breath. Let's calm down. So we did this. It started calming down. The rate started going down a little bit. But unfortunately, we were taking him into the hospital. And hospitals make people nervous. But as we got to the hospital, and I was doing it a little more with him, and I was sending him some energy. If nobody understands, I'm an energy healer as well. So I was sending him energy. I contacted my mother and I said, Dad's got some kind of thing. Could you send some energy? Could you send some prayers over, right? Who thinks of doing that when the heart is like, when the heart's flipping out? Okay, so all these things are going into it. So he was feeling better, though. He was feeling better. He didn't have as much of the sensation of the fluttering. We had given him the herbal sedatives, and then he went in for his appointment. He came back out, and I said, you know what, let's just check on this. So we went in to see his chemo doctor. And the chemo doctor said, this is bad. You have tachycardia. And I said, he also had skipped beats. And she goes, I don't feel the skipped beats anymore. They were gone. Okay, so that was from breathing. That was from releasing tension. That all of those skipped beats went away just from that. But he still had a rapid heartbeat. Okay, so he had a tachycardia. I think it was like 150, right? So tachycardia starts at 100 beats per minute. So we were continuing to do this. We were continuing to like walk him down through the tension because I had told him I knew of a story of a man that had been sent home to die after a heart attack, and he found out that if he released the emotional tension from his body, that he could release all of the pain in his heart. So he released, we just kept releasing, and the reason I'm saying this is because the heart is a very emotional organ, right? So when you're feeling emotional, you're going to feel that in your heart. And a lot of times this is what I find in people that have a heart problem or have palpitations or skipped beats, is that something has just happened. They've just had a breakup. They're going through a divorce. They've had a child in the hospital or die. They've had some kind of trauma, right? And the trauma can really affect the heart. And so we have to always remember, we can treat the heart with herbs. We can we can slow down the heartbeat with beta blockers and things like that. But we always have to make sure that we deal with the emotional heart as well. So, so because his pulse was 150 and we were wheeling him down to the emergency room at this point, right? And like I said, this was the worst heartbeat I had ever seen, and he had a normal pulse at that point. For some reason, I got this intuitive hit, which I always say is extremely important. Follow your intuition. I stopped the wheelchair. I turned him around. This is my father, right? I turned him around and I said, "Dad, I love you." Like, see, it's a little emotional. This worked, though. This worked. I said, "Dad, I love you. I don't want you to leave. I want you to stay. You're a very important part of our family. We all love you, and we want you to stay. Please stay for us." And so he was having this, emotional response. And I said, "I want you to live." And give me a little second here.
It's okay. I wanted to jump in for a second because for people who are new to this kind of information, I think it's important to point out, and I think for most people it's very obvious what you're saying. We're very electrical beings, and emotions are a great part of our life. But what I keep hearing you blending together is you're reminding your father about something that's extremely important for him to know in his life, about how he was so strongly connected to you, and that would be a very valuable thing for him to know. On an intellectual level, what I'm trying to get at is this idea that what we think about is so critically important, and that we are thinking always in the correct way. And if we don't think correctly, it can seriously impact our heart function. And if our heart function then starts to go off, it can literally then go back and impact the way that we keep thinking, and it becomes this very vicious cycle. And forgive me for interrupting you so you can bring yourself back together, but this idea of you getting him back in touch with something intellectually that he could hear, that would also give him a wonderful, warm, positive, emotional feeling, can literally stabilize or restabilize someone who is feeling very off chronically, day after day, month after month, year after year. That this is an incredibly healing experience you're describing. That's all.
Exactly. You're wanted, you're needed, you're important. Your life has a purpose. You're here for a reason. All of this stuff is very important. And so I went, okay, we're going to continue to go to the emergency room, but I want you to know that this is how we all feel and that this is important and you're important to us. And so we got him to the emergency room, and I fast-tracked him through, because if you take somebody to the ER, you need to let them know exactly what you're dealing with. You need to let them know this person has been passing out, or this person's on chemo. So I said, look, he's on chemo. And they're like, okay, we're going to fast-track him, right? So they fast-tracked him in, and they took all of his vitals. His heartbeat was normal. He was no longer tachycardic. He had no rhythm problems whatsoever.
You mean, right, a steady heartbeat of that 72, 80-ish type thing?
Yes.
Wow.
He had completely come down. And that was the last little bit of it, right? So we were breathing, we were releasing, we were letting go of the fear. He had a lot of fear. I'm undergoing chemo, I'm afraid I'm dying, blah, blah, blah. And the truth was, he had had a heart attack. They did the EKG. The EKG was negative. And this is a really important point. The EKG will be negative 30% of the time, even if you are in the middle of a massive heart attack. A lot of people do not know this. And so sometimes if you have a normal EKG, the doctor will dismiss your symptoms. Do not ever let this happen. If you feel something in here, it's important. Always pay attention. So,
and excuse me for interrupting, but another very important thing you went over very quickly that I want to make sure people really hear loud and clear is you have this history of your dad with chemotherapy, all these things going on. You go into a hospital and you say, excuse me, I feel a little funny in my heart. It is so easy for these people to overlook something really extremely important that needs to be taken care of immediately, so that you need to go in fully cognizant of the fact that you need to be armed with this kind of information and speak up or else you're going to just be pushed aside and in a waiting room for an hour, 2, 3
Right,
hours.
right, exactly, exactly. And the other thing that can happen is that your doctors and the people around you can go into this very mechanical mode. We're treating this heart as if it's a thing, right? Instead of this is a person, this is a human being in front of us. They can get very mechanical. They can be like, we got to do this, we got to do this, we got to follow this protocol. It's very clinical. It's very devoid of emotion, and it can be intimidating. And you have to do what we say, or we're going to take off all your clothes now, and we're going to put all these monitors on you. And this is like it. You think this is going to help somebody with a skipping heartbeat, right? It's not. It's not helpful. It can actually make you panic more. So what I did was the opposite. Hold their hand, talk slowly, slow down your breathing. And encourage them to slow down their breathing. As soon as you have them slow down their breathing, slowing down the breathing will slow down your heartbeat, will slow down the metabolism, will slow down your thoughts. Okay, so you get them all nice and calm like that, right? So then I said, you know what, we better just check this. I want to know, why he had the worst pulse I've ever felt, even though he seems to be okay in the moment. And he is undergoing very toxic drugs here. So I said, I want something like a Holter monitor put on him so that he can be monitored 24/7. They said, fine, we're going to send him home with that. So, and it was a good thing that we did, because he had another episode in the middle of the night, and they found it. And I said, okay, so I'm going to put you on my heart formula. So it's the hawthorn, the motherwort. I think that one had some turmeric in it, the cactus grandiflorus, the black cohosh. And he was a very complicated case because he had a bleeding tumor. And in my heart formula, I have red clover. And red clover is a natural blood thinner, right? So instead of the aspirin, instead of blood thinners, I give the red clover. And sometimes I give proteolytic enzymes. But we can cover that later. So I gave him one dropper because I wanted to make sure, you've got a bleeding tumor, and then you don't want to give too much of a blood thinner.
I was going to just say, you just almost read my mind, Dr. Foster. If someone out there is taking a baby aspirin to prevent a heart attack and they're playing around with red clover, is that something they should be concerned about, and just got to be careful and work with the right person?
I will not let anybody mix the natural with the doctor. You should not mix a blood thinner, a prescription blood thinner, with proteolytic enzymes, red clover, or even garlic, because you could have a bleed. These medications are very dangerous. The warfarin. I have a whole huge article on my website about the dangers of warfarin, and there's 100 scientific references on there about all the horrible things that can happen when you take warfarin. You can bleed, you can hemorrhage, you can bleed into your brain, you can bleed into your gut, you can bleed into your lungs. Anywhere in your body you can bleed if you're taking the prescription.
And for those who may be not sure about what you're referring to, you could throw out Coumadin, you could throw out Plavix. We're talking about these are real serious medications. You've got to really pay attention to this.
Right. And that's why I prefer to use the natural ones, because they are gentler, but they still work, right? So I've only had one patient who insisted, and he said, my doctors say I have extremely thick blood, I have an extreme tendency to clot. We did it one time with one patient, and he was fine. But no, I generally say you have to choose one or the other. And I say, look, if you take the natural blood thinners, if you take the red clover, if you get at all the reasons why you've got blood clots going on, or why your body's tending to do this, then you don't need the prescription stuff. You don't need aspirin. All right. This is the worst when somebody has a heart attack and then they get put on these blood thinners, because then I have to get them off.
This is not radical stuff we're saying. Let's be really grounded about this. After decades of saying that baby aspirins prevent a heart attack, studies, articles have been produced. Whoops. I mean, I'm not trying to be cavalier. Whoops. It doesn't really prevent a heart attack. Kind of the stories came out already. It's already been public. But here we are still talking about it.
Okay, so now we're gonna do an aside, because my grandmother was taking aspirin because she had gout, and it was a baby aspirin. I think she was on gout medication, and she was also on a baby aspirin, and of course it was buffered. It was the good aspirin, right? And when you're taking this stuff every day or every other day, which the doctors recommend a lot, you're taking it every other day, you will get a stomach ulcer, which is what happened to her. She got the stomach ulcer so bad it eroded the lining of her stomach to the point where she threw up blood.
Same thing with me. I knew a doctor client of mine years ago who was taking medication every single day, just like the doctor prescribed.
Right.
One day he's in the shower, woo, his head's spinning, and he literally falls down in the shower stall. He gets admitted to a hospital. Oh, guess what you've got going on? Internal bleeding in your stomach area, in your gut. It's blowing it out, weakening vessels, and you're literally leaking blood inside your body.
So what happened to my grandmother was she got nauseated, she went to the toilet, and she threw up all this blood, and then she passed out because she lost so much blood. They had to rush her to the hospital. They had to give her a blood transfusion. This is from baby aspirin. Right, so we're going to get back to the original story here of the AFib. He was on the Holter monitor. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to give too much. That's why I like to give herbs. The dose is very customizable. So we've got drops of a highly concentrated liquid extract, which I like to use. The extracts are way stronger than if you were to take hawthorn and motherwort in a capsule in dried form. So I know kind of like what the dose is. It's like 2 droppers. And I'm like, we're going to start with 1 dropper because I don't want to make you bleed. He takes 1 dropper, he's fine. He has a little bit of flutter, right? So it's not all the way gone. And so the second day I said, okay, we're going to move up to 2. We're going to see if it's okay. And I already knew, like, he had already been telling me he was waking up covered in blood from the tumor, right? So I'm like, we're being very cautious about this. And so he handled 2 droppers the next day. He handled it fine. When we had him up to 2 droppers 3 times a day, the AFib completely left. It completely went away. As long as he took that formula, he did not need any medication for the AFib. It was, for all intents and purposes, it was gone. So I had him on this because with hawthorn, the thing to know about hawthorn is that it can help regenerate your heart if it's been damaged. So let's say you've had a heart attack. You want to take this herb every day for at least a year, maybe longer, because herbs work in a different way than the medication. So the medication is designed to have a certain effect on your body, but the herbs actually contain nutrients. So they're not just having an effect on your body. They are helping your body to build healthier tissues and healthier structures.
Yeah, just to crystallize, Dr. Foster, what you're saying, the pharmaceutical agents, substances, have a more immediate designed impact.
Right.
And when you're talking about herbal formulations, it's not like I'm going to take this herb and what's going to happen in 5 to 7 days is I'm going to turn this thing around, right? It's going to take time.
Right. So your body needs to build new cells. We can still get a pretty good result with herbs, especially if they're the concentrated extracts. But yes, it's vitamins, it's minerals, it's enzymes, it's cofactors. All of those things are contained in the herbs, and that's why you take those, because you are building a new body. So he was on those. And for the rest of the time, he did not have any skipped beats. He did not have any more problems with that. And he was a tennis player. He was playing full sets of tennis, like 3 times a week after that happened. And it wasn't until a year later when he had to go to the hospital again that they saw the old EKG evidence of the heart attack that he had had that day.
Was your father taking chemo again and again though, during this year? Or?
He took 2 months. And at the end of 2 months, he said, I can't do it anymore. He had extreme things happen. And one of those things was the heart attack, which we fixed, But he was continuing to do the chemo as we were fixing his heart, and he was having those chemicals pour through. I mean, it's a testament to the herbs, really. I mean, if I can give you herbs and they're pouring chemicals directly into your heart and your heart is okay, I mean, hey, that's not bad for hawthorn and motherwort and the black cohosh and all of those other herbs. So.
Can I say what it's also a testament to? It's the main reason why I'm doing the Cardiovascular Health Masterclass. Is that when people don't have this kind of information, it's so easy then for them to fall into what you're warning about, which is you don't know what's going on. It's red alert, 11th hour. Everybody's heart rate is beating irregularly. The emotional energy going into it from one person to another, family, friends, it's really negative energy. You're going into a hospital, you're going by what they say, which is very mechanical and very, the same for everybody, cookie cutter approach, all the toxic medications, all the wires, all the tubes. It's not a win situation at all. So it's important for us to be armed with this information before it's our 11th hour ourselves.
Right, exactly. So, yes, and it's what I do with every patient that has palpitations, and I can do this in person with them, I can do it on the phone with them, as we start breathing. And I'm like, it's going to be okay. Let's let go of this, okay? And there's certain things that we let go of. There are certain things as human beings we get upset over. We get upset over whether we think somebody's disapproved of us. We get upset over things that are outside of our control that we want control over. We get upset over things changing. Things changing too fast, we get upset. So we let go of the fear of things changing. We let go of the fear of the future, let go of fearing that other people don't approve of us. And so I walk them through the questions. I give them the heart herbs. And if you have any structural problem with your heart, you want to do that anyway. You want to build a new heart, as well as control those symptoms. So.
And on a positive note, for people who aren't, and obviously most are not in touch, I can really relate so much to what you're saying. As an athlete in my past, I could literally know what my average resting heart rate was, and I could actually play with how my heart rate was beating. I feel my heart beating more relaxed, a little calmer, and slightly less beats per minute, just by simply staying on my pulse,
Right.
taking deeper breaths, and literally feeling my heart change within a second. So we're conditioning ourselves by practicing good, healthy breathing, getting the air in, affecting us on a physical level. We're conditioning ourselves on a neuromuscular level, on a brain chemistry level. It's all affecting each other, and we can instantly get great results. And then the key is, what you've been talking about a lot, be consistent and stay with it so that we can truly condition ourselves to be very different people. And then it
Right.
literally spills into stressful situations
Right.
where we breathe in and out through them, where we tend to think more instead of emotionally reacting in a negative way. We think through things more, we stay calmer, we make better decisions, and then we have better outcomes,
Right.
all because we're simply playing this game of conditioning ourselves to breathe a little bit more, bring these oils into our life, essential oils, healthier lifestyle practices, all these things.
Right. And this is a very important point, because I remember we were in the middle of the hospital. There's chaos all around. There's people waiting for their appointment. There's people moving, back and forth. There's, gurneys going everywhere. So there's all this stuff going on in the hospital. I took my dad, I looked at him, and I said, you have control over this. You have control over your heartbeat. And he had never done this technique before. He had never done the breathing. He had never done the releasing. But this went in when I said it. You have control over your heartbeat. You can do this. You can manage this. And he's like, and on some level it went in and it worked, right? So
Dr. Foster, that was enlightening, and I'm not being silly. I think that's really important storytelling and information that people need to know, hopefully before it's too late. But what about this last issue I just want to touch on for a few minutes? Mm-hmm. And it's about a heart valve, right? Everybody's talks about that as well. What have you got to tell us?
Okay, so I had a patient that came to me kind of early on in my practice and said, I have a bicuspid aortic valve and it's not doing so well, and the doctors say that I need surgery. So they were going to crack open his chest. They were going to do open heart surgery and replace this valve. And I said, wait a minute, right? Wait a minute. Because I know of somebody, one of my herbal teachers, who had genetically deformed heart valves, healed them naturally, and went back to the doctor, and the heart valves are normal. And this guy was like passing out because the valves were not functioning. And I'm like, let's try this. Let's see if we can avoid this surgery, right? And he agreed. And I said, first thing off, you're carrying some extra weight. This guy was a bodybuilder, right? And so this was the hardest thing for him to hear. He didn't want to hear that. And I said, can you drop about 20 pounds? Because, if we have a heart that's not functioning, we want to take as much stress off of the heart as possible. So if you're carrying around extra weight, you need to drop some. And I changed his diet. I said, if you have a strain on your heart, then we need to make your blood a little thinner. Okay, so I wanted to do that dietarily, so I temporarily turned him into a vegan. So then he was a vegan bodybuilder. And he did drop 20 pounds by lifting less weight. And I asked him, I said, is the diet making a difference in your weight? And he goes, no, not at all. Because some people think you can't be a vegan and be a bodybuilder. And he goes, no, it's a function of how much weight I lift. And I go, oh, this is fascinating, right? So, so that was 20 years ago, right? And he goes, I'm already taking an herb. He had relatives from India. So he was taking an herb called arjuna, right? And arjuna is an Ayurvedic herb that's used for the heart. And I said, do you feel anything with this? And he goes, no, not really. But that's pretty typical, right? I have people, they're taking all kinds of supplements. Maybe they're taking a few capsules here and there. It's something that, somebody told them would be good. It's not very strong. And I'm like, let's try the really strong, potent, concentrated extract here. And I gave him my Healthy Heart Formula. And he took it and he immediately said, okay, that's a huge difference. Because, if you've got these heart valve problems, you can have skip beats. You can also have angina pains too. So all of those symptoms went away with the Healthy Heart Formula. And I do have an essential oil blend that I also use with people that have angina that help to open this up. The marjoram essential oil, the lavender essential oil. It's got Roman chamomile in there. These are herbs that kind of act like an antispasmodic. So you may think like, oh, I have pain in here. There's nothing to do except to take maybe a nitroglycerin. That's not true. Antispasmodics are very powerful for things like this. So, so that's what we did. We put them on the Healthy Heart Formula. And if you have any problem with your heart, you have to realize that there are other parts of your body that are involved. So in Chinese medicine, we know that the heart is related to the small intestine. So with him, I did lots of colon cleansing. We also gave him a lot of greens. You want to rebuild a part of your body that was not genetically formed correctly, then you have to have the nutrition. So spirulina, chlorella, wheatgrass, barley grass, alfalfa. I put him on the vegan diet. I turned his diet all organic, all of that stuff. He is still taking that heart formula to this day. It's 20 years later. He never had the surgery.
It seems like very almost irresponsible, conventionally speaking, to hear this kind of a conversation. Yet for most people I know listening to this right now, it really is intuitively a lot of common sense. Here it is, you're talking about looking upstream, which is what you just said at the end. Maybe there's stagnation, calcification, right? Dysfunction somewhere else in the body. And the heart, on some, for lack of a better way of putting it, intuitive level, it picks up on it and starts to work poorly. And yet if you lighten the load, as you say, you improve circulation, respiration, literally elimination, and you unplug somebody who could be constipated. That's kind of what I got from you, that someone constipated and backing up and stuffed up and stagnant energetically as well as a human being can literally make that valve not work well. And another thing I got from you, just real quick to get your feedback on, is basically when you step all the way back from what you just said, you work with the premise that you're not broken to be managed and treated. There's something off in you, but you're a living, healthy person. You can get that way again. You're a breathing individual. You're alive. And if you make adjustments, you can come back to great health. Western medicine just sort of sees you as broken. And now, and with all due respect, they have to test, treat, and manage your broken body that really doesn't have the ability to come back. You know what I'm saying?
It's like you're Humpty Dumpty and they're putting Band-Aids on. They're not sealing it back up. They're just putting it. So when you leave the doctor, you're still walking, but you're not feeling your optimal. You're not feeling like it's not gone. And if you treat with a heart medication, if you treat a heart problem with a heart medication, you're not doing anything to clean the colon out. You're not doing anything for the constipation problem. I have people that tell me their heart pain improves when they do a colon cleanse. He also did liver cleanses. He did kidney cleanses. He did all kinds of herbal cleanses that should not have had an effect on his heart, but did. Because in the holistic model, all of the parts of your body are important and they all help each other. They're all communicating with each other. And so we want to heal the whole body. The body then heals the heart.
And with all due respect to anyone out there who wants a heart valve replacement, more power to you. Then go ahead. But you know, maybe a lot of people who are listening to this, what have you got to lose? Right. You have a lot of family members involved. You can get a lot of good support. If the energy is right, why not try some of these things, right? Work with a practitioner that's going to give you the kind of professional, intelligent, emotional, good quality support. Give it a shot, and then you know what? If all else fails, then you also have the replacement that you can try as well. But this just makes sense to make the body structurally, mentally, emotionally, and physically feel so much better and see what happens.
Okay, so there are babies that are born, they're blue, they have a heart valve problem. I'm not saying you shouldn't get the valve replacement if it's for a baby, right? Because sometimes it's such a severe heart valve defect that they need that, okay? The other thing is with the mitral valve, it doesn't really matter which valve it is, right? It matters that you're rebuilding it. You're rebuilding not just with the herbs, but with your diet as well. And with keeping your heart open, really deeply loving yourself and others. And all of that's important for keeping your heart open. So I know for women with the mitral valve prolapse, it sometimes feels like you're having an anxiety attack. And so you want to remember not just taking the herbs, but doing your breathing and releasing tension, releasing emotional trauma. I go in and do energetically trauma release, and sometimes I can find like, oh, at age 14, this is a recent patient of mine, and we were doing the energy work, and I walked her back to 14, and she had a near drowning incident. And it had to do with the problem that she had at the present moment. So sometimes we have to uncover and dig a little bit with the traumas, but in the moment, you can definitely clear. You can definitely release what's going on. And you can do it to the point where you have no pain at all left in your chest. And you can do it to the point where you can normalize your own heartbeat.
I hope we don't lose anybody, because we are talking about, obviously, eating greens, eating organic food, taking the best quality supplements. I think most people watching us, they get it. But what I keep hearing you come back around and talking about a lot, which is extremely important for good heart function, is the really good emotional energy that goes into you as an individual, what you do, resolving emotional issues, getting over yourself in a sense, all due respect, and also getting the right people around you who really understand this as well, putting good emotional energy into you as well. How important is it for, I'm not trying to be sexist here, just from my own personal experience, for a woman to feel really great support from their man? Just one small example, just that feeling of someone around you supporting you rather than freaking out over your health problem. It's so important that all of this happens, right?
Right. That's the number one thing I see happens if people are in the middle of a divorce or if they have a traumatic breakup. It will affect them in the heart. They'll think they're having a heart attack. There are so many people that go to the ER with rapid heartbeat, with palpitations, and they've just gone through a breakup. And when you're feeling emotionally vulnerable like this, do you think a great thing to do is be in the middle of this hospital chaos? It's not necessarily the best thing to do. But yeah, it'll affect your pericardial meridian. This is Chinese medicine again. And this meridian runs along your arm. And so I sometimes help people clear these meridians as well. And that will help your heartbeat too.
Isn't it true that most of these heart attacks they report is on a Monday and not on a weekend, by chance. Look at that. What's going on with people mentally and emotionally?
Yes, and the heart will be very much affected by sleep deprivation. If you are a person that's chronically sleep deprived, you will, there are studies that say your heart will be, you're more likely to get a heart attack, you're more likely to have heart problems. So make sure you're sleeping well, make sure you have a good sleep environment where it's completely dark in the room and that you slow down before you go to sleep. Don't read in bed. Just have the bed there for sleeping, and get yourself nice and calm so that you can sleep deeply. If you do a little stress relieving techniques right before you're going to sleep, it helps you sleep a little deeper. And if you are waking up in the middle of the night, depending on at what hour of the morning it could indicate a certain one of your organs is out of balance. So if, let's say, you're waking up every morning at 2 consistently, then you need to start looking at your liver, doing some liver cleanses, things like that. If it's 5 o'clock, it's usually bladder or whatever. There's lung, there's large intestine. So if you're not sleeping through the night, make sure you take care of the reason why. Because if you don't sleep, it could affect your heart.
And another overall thing as we just close out here, which is so simple, easy to overlook, but it's important to highlight, is just being dehydrated can have a very negative impact on your heart function, especially if you've been dehydrated for years and years and years. You get to the point where now it's becoming really problematic.
Right. Your body needs water. Your body is 70% water. And so we must drink water every day. And one of the things that's really important, I get all of my heart patients off of coffee. Do not consume stimulants if you have a rapid heartbeat. Do not consume any kind of stimulant. No diet drugs, no ADHD drugs. Nothing that's a stimulant. You do not need any excess stimulation on your heart when you have skipped beats, missed beats, heart valve problems, any sort of problem with your heart. Do not do that. Take adaptogenic herbs instead. Things like ginseng, ashwagandha, rhodiola. These are adaptogenic herbs that help you have energy without the caffeine, without the vasoconstriction, the increase in your blood pressure, all of that stuff. So you still can get the energy, but don't do it with the coffee. Do it with the greens. Oh my goodness. Take those greens, the chlorella, the spirulina, they give you lots of energy. They give you the mental alertness. That is like nutritional coffee without the caffeine, without the coffee. You don't need it. I've gotten a lot of people off of coffee with adaptogenic herbs.
Wasn't that amazing? Dr. Foster offers a wealth of valuable information. So much so that I asked Dr. Foster to create a special Rescue Your Heart action guide and a collection of 21 heart rescue recipes. Both of these books are available for all those that purchase the Cardiovascular DocuClass. If you would like to own this event, plus all the bonuses, including Dr. Foster's books, simply click the link below and choose the package that best fits your needs. Up next, as promised, you'll see another video on this page which features Dr. Rashid Buttar talking about the key to healing your heart problems by resolving hidden emotional issues and a very practical discussion about how essential oils can be used to improve your cardiovascular system with Dr. Eric Zielinski. Talk to you soon. Take care.